Good. One more, bro. One more, bro. You got this. You got this. One more. Okay. Bro, that's 2.
Dude, I had like 5 left. What are you doing?
Bro, it looked like you needed help. All right, push. You got it, bro. You got it. Push. It's all you. It's all you, bro. Just push. Push. You got it. Oh, Jesus. All right, bro, let's take these weights for a tour around Disney World. Let's go. Take it for a spin up and down the roller coaster. Make those weights pay your mortgage. You got taxes? These weights are paying them, baby. Come on. F that weight right in the
I think I'm good, man. I think I'm good.
You sure?
Don't ever put your balls in my face like that again.
Do you want to tell them how many times we had to shoot that?
Actually, I don't want to talk about that video ever again.
That's
fair. Never. What's up, guys? Jeff Cavalier, ATHLEAN-X.com.
Jesse Lako, ATHLEAN-X.com.
Today, though, we are going to talk about spotting. And you know, it's not necessarily as cut and dry as some people make it out to be, right? And we're going to do it in the form of an Ask Jeff question. That's right. In this series, if you want a question of yours answered, you leave a comment below. Jesse combs through them. He picks the ones that he wants to cover, and there we go. And that brings us to today's question from
Albert Hansen. Jeff, what's your opinion on spotting? I'm a bit of an old school guy, and I tend to never want anyone to touch my bar when I'm lifting. But am I being too stubborn for my own good? Thanks for all you do. You're a national treasure.
Wow, a national treasure. Albert, thank you very much.
If you're a national treasure, what the hell does that make me?
Soon to be fired?
Please don't joke about that ever again.
So, Albert, thank you for your question. So let's talk about that, because this actually brings to light some of the things that I talk about when it comes to spotting. I'm guessing that Albert is probably pretty experienced, okay, because he's talking about, you know, kind of old school, doesn't want anybody touching his bar, and I respect that, because that's the old school approach. But is that necessarily warranted all the time? Well, if we go to the other end of the spectrum, the beginner's side of experience, right? I actually have a very firm stance when it comes to that. I don't believe that beginners should be employing spotters for anything other than safety and potentially on a bench, a lift off to get you in position to bench. But they should not be touching your lift in the midst of your lift. And there's a big reason for that. If you're a beginner, you have to learn how to command your own body in space before you can even start to command your own body holding an implement in space, let alone letting someone else move that implement for you. I mean, listen, we've all seen the guy who rushes over to the bench press. Meanwhile, they can't perform a proper push-up, right? They lack the body mechanics and the awareness to do it properly. You start to add load to that body, things start to go wrong, right? And that's oftentimes why I'll start beginners on body weight strength training programs to learn how to command your body three-dimensionally in space, because it matters. And when I say beginners, I'm not just saying teenagers here, guys. I'm talking about we can have beginners in their 40s who've never touched a weight before and are equally inept at handling their own body in space, let alone handling a bar and their body in space. So I discourage that. Now, there's a difference between having someone there for some of these other intangibles that I'm going to cover in a second, but I'm talking about interfering with your progression of the bar from the bottom to the top, or whatever exercise you're doing in a lat pull down even. We see them spotting everything. The thing that I would say, though, is there's one thing that's actually worse than a beginner that's always having someone spot them.
Oh, I know this one.
What?
A bad spot.
A bad spot Barry.
Yes, bad spot Barry.
Just like you, right? So a bad spotter can be extremely dangerous. It takes a lift that could maybe become ineffective with the spot, and it can make it downright dangerous. And that's not limited to beginners. You can see even in a case like Chris Duffin here, who's a friend of mine, this is a spot. I'm not saying it was done on purpose, or even that the guy's a bad spotter. He just had a bad moment. And that caused a very ugly situation. Chris was going for a double. The guy thought he was going for a single. He tried to rack the bar. It caused a disaster, as you can see.
Chris was very upset, and I think that's the last guy I want to upset.
That you can see becomes a very dangerous situation. But when we talk about the benefits of spotting, well, there's a lot of them. And we don't have to look too far in the past to see even the incident that happened with Ryan Crowley.
Oh, man.
That having spotters there took a bad, ugly situation and saved it from being much worse, potentially even critical. Because if he didn't have those two guys on the ends of the bar, and by the way, I don't forget about you on the left of the bar over there, because a lot of times you don't get credit. You had super spotter Larry Wheels at the top there, holding the bar. And by the way, if I ever needed a spotter to save my life, he's the guy I want.
Me too.
But the guys on the left there, they both did a job too to save that ugly situation. Safety and the assurance of safety is a big thing that can be gained when the load is especially high like that. A motivator. It's good to have a motivator. You know, if your spotter's there to push you, not necessarily to say the things you were saying there, bad spot Barry. I don't know about if I care about anybody paying my taxes. I certainly don't care if any, whatever, I won't get into that.
That way right in the
think I'm good, man. I think I'm good.
You sure?
But saying the right things at the right time could actually encourage you to get the job done. Reassurance. There's nothing like the reassurance of knowing that somebody's there to help you if needed. And that sometimes psychologically triggers someone to do a lot more in the gym than they're capable of, right? When they're wiggling their fingers under the bar on a bench press, they're not touching it, because they shouldn't touch it, but they're basically wiggling them there, and you know that they're there if you need it. Somehow that bar sort of moves a little bit easier than it does when you know there's nobody behind you. Yeah. And that's a big psychological edge that a lot of times helps you to get better results from your training. And then, of course, we have some of the actual things that happen in a lift itself where I think spotters are warranted. Let's talk about that bench press. The actual liftoff. We all know that the most important part of the bench press is not the liftoff. As a matter of fact, biomechanically, we know that's the most inefficient part of the lift. We're putting our arms back behind our body, not in line with our forearms, with our elbows. That's the most vulnerable in terms of putting our shoulders into a bad position. Yeah. Let someone lift that off for you, but then you got to take care of the lift from there. Now we got to talk about, though, goals. Okay, so what is your goal? Because if hypertrophy is your goal of training, then you need to understand that a spotter can actually provide something very valuable to you, and that is they can help you to do forced reps. Okay, now forced reps can actually serve as sort of drop sets without ever dropping the weight, right? Without ever putting the bar back, because they're basically unloading the weight for you. So let's say Jesse's bench pressing, right? And you start with 200 pounds. Yep. And then I'm not touching the bar. But then we get to your sticking point. Mm-hmm. If I don't touch it and I stay away, you're done. Yeah. Right? You can't get through the sticking point.
It's going to fall right on top.
If you're at that point in the set where you can't make it through your sticking point anymore. But if I give you about 5 or 10% assistance through there, and you're able to get through and perform that rep, and then you can do it again, and I give you about 10% or 15% assistance, you can do it again. You can see that you can start to accrue some volume, and high effort, high intensity volume here, by simply having me there to help spot you through, which is going to help in your pursuit of hypertrophy depending upon how much you use this technique. You don't want to overuse it, right? But essentially, without having to drop that weight down, you're going and basically doing the equivalent of a drop set, a run the rack with lighter and lighter and lighter weights, except that I'm doing more and more of the work for you.
Yeah, we don't have to strip the plates.
Right, until I'm ultimately curling the bar up for you, on a bench press. So that's an effective technique. But now, if your goal was, let's say, strength, I think that it becomes a little bit muddier here. All right, the waters become a little bit muddier. There are people that will argue that the spotter, at the crucial moment in the lift, that lets you grind. It doesn't just take the bar away from you. That's a crime. You got to let the person grind. And when you do that, neurologically, you're allowing somebody to actually fight through those sticking points. And maybe with just a little bit of assistance, it allows you to sort of build that confidence that you can take with you as you build your strength. But here's where I say it's a caution. And here's where the other side of the equation comes in, where people argue, don't touch my freaking bar. Yeah. And that is, you are ultimately going to be responsible. At some point, the rubber's going to hit the road, and you're going to have to lift that weight. And if you don't have your spotter with you, and they've always helped you through your weak spot, you're only as strong as your weakest link. You are not going to lift that bar. And if that's the case, what have you really gained from that? Other than you've gotten stronger in the other ranges of motion. So what I advise in most cases is, instead of looking for a spotter to take you through those areas of the lift that are more difficult for you, think of other ways that you can improve your ability to perform that lift if strength is your goal. Think about what accessory exercises you can perform. Right? Think about what other mechanisms you could use. Could you employ chains on a bench press, let's say, to allow you to get through that point and build your strength at the same time without somebody interfering with your lift? Right? What are some of the other things that you can do in your technique? Can you learn how to tighten up better? Yeah. Can you learn how to get your shoulders back so your chest and shoulders are pushing together more efficiently out of the bottom of that press? There's techniques, there's other methods you can use that will allow you to get through this without anybody ever having to jump in and touch that bar. And therefore, in Albert's case, I understand what he's talking about. Yeah. He's old school, but again, Albert, I would say, to answer your question, you could be being a little bit too stubborn. Again, not knowing what your current goal is right now, there are instances where it could matter. And of course, when it comes down to goal, load, and experience, there are factors involved in those things that ultimately matter. Albert, thank you for your question, guys. If you have your question that you want answered, make sure you leave it below. That's what these Ask Jeff videos are about. In the meantime, if you're looking for programs where we put the science back in strength and lay out what you have to do day by day, step by step, it's all over at ATHLEAN-X.com. In the meantime, if you haven't already done so, guys, make sure you click subscribe, turn your notifications so you never miss a new video when we put one out. All right, guys, see you soon.
I'm a great spotter, by the way.
Oh, get out of here.